Hello, my name is Siko. I'm a music producer. I'm Nigerian by birth, but I live in California right now. And today I'm going to show you some tips. Yes, well, tips, tutorials, whatever, I'll show you stuff. So here are my, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's call it 7, right? 7 tips to make your beats bounce. How's that? These tips are hopefully transferable across genres. And the example I'll be showing you today will be something closer to Afrobeats, although I'm a little out of touch. But this is the best example I could come up with right now. So what is bounce? Bounce is basically the thing in the beat that makes your head go, It's a very subtle art, by the way. You might watch this entire video and actually not learn anything. And for some people, it might help you quite a bit. I should say that if you are a professional producer, you probably know everything I'm about to say, and then more. The reason why I'm making these videos is because I've actually watched a lot of tutorials myself, and I found that they had a lot of useful information, but a lot of them did not tackle actually how to make beats bounce. Sometimes you might see it in the producer's workflow, but they don't always hit the nail on the head and say exactly what this thing is and what it does. Okay, without wasting too much more of your time, let's go there. Tip number 1, swing button. Can't say this often enough. FL Studio, for example, has this little knob right here. This is the main swing knob. You push this guy, and what it does is that it'll push some notes forward, it'll push some notes backwards, just to make it feel less perfect. Human perception is wonderful, and God has designed it so that we actually don't enjoy music that sounds perfectly on time. Which is why a live performance will always sound better than anything that you can produce on a computer, because a live performance has human imperfections that communicate emotion better than when everything is perfect. Let me solo just the drums here. So let me take the swing off and play. And push the swing all the way to 100 so you can hear a really radical change. So things sound really off. When you put it to excess, it'll push things way off the grid. Generally, I have mine around 35, but it depends on the kind of beats that I'm doing. Some people, they prefer more, some people prefer less. So yeah, you hear it sounds a little less robotic, a little less tight. It's that swing button. The second thing, and this is probably the biggest tip, is to move the notes around. The first thing I learned was to move claps behind kicks. So when you're doing like EDM, you want your claps slightly behind the kick, and that way it sounds chunkier than if you had the claps landing exactly same time with the kicks, or had the claps a little forward ahead of the kicks. It's just what I found. Generally, a good rule of thumb is to have your kicks as a reference point. So like my kicks on this beat, I'm probably going to leave them alone. But you can still move them. There's nothing that stops you from moving them around. So these snaps, for example, they're right on time. Move them forward. You hear that flow? Move them back. Sounds more urgent. It's almost like you messed with the attack. And don't just do this with drums, do this with anything. Second tip I can give you is to not quantize. Quantization is basically when you snap things to grid. When you play your notes, they're imperfect, and when you quantize, you snap everything into grid. So you can play without snapping everything into grid. Just play everything in stacks. But if you will do that, my advice is don't use a metronome. I'd rather you use like a shaker loop that has more activities per beat. Also, if you're going to play without quantizing, try to keep your latency level as low as possible. There's a fair chance that you can hear a baby screaming right now. I have a 1-year-old and I have no apologies. Deal with it. Next tip, use delays. What I personally like to do with hi-hats is put them on a triplet delay. Turn the delay off so you hear. Delay on. Put a kick in there. just makes it bounce a little more. Gives you that, because it's basically adding extra notes every measure or so, but it's adding them at lower velocities, so it actually sounds nice. Which, by the way, takes me perfectly to my next tip, which is play with your velocities. So if you don't know, the velocity is the intensity at which each note hits. So let me play you some snares. So here's the problem with the snares. These snares are all played at the same velocity, so it feels very robotic. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to reduce the velocities, not of everything, but I'm just going to reduce the velocity. Where I see 2 or 3 notes together, I will make the velocities go up and down. So like that. So make that one go. There's 2, make that one go. There's 2 here, make this one go. I could do it a lot more, but I'm just doing this just to show you the difference. Make that one go right there, and listen to how this sounds. So I'll play with the drums. Sound different now, doesn't it? Is that now it bounces, you know? I'll give you tips 6 and 7 together. The tips are play on the offbeat and try to sidechain. Playing on the offbeat just means that, you know, instead of, I'll show you. I have a pad. It's just a simple gated pad. Playing in the offbeat just means that I will take these, and rather than have them start at the point where it starts, I'll actually have it start here. I also cut the length of the notes because they're doing something crazy I don't like. You know what? Playing on the offbeat may not be the correct technical term for it, but you understand what I'm saying. And then sidechain. Sidechain is basically where you sidechain one signal to another, so that when the one signal hits, the other one drops in volume. The most common use for sidechaining is when you sidechain a bass to a kick. And so every time the kick lands, the bass drops in volume, and then as the kick goes away, the bass comes back in volume. In EDM, it gives it this pumping effect. So with this one, I sidechained this pad to my kick. This is what it sounds like without the sidechain. It's fine, but once I turn on the sidechain, it makes a subtle difference. Just listen to every time the kick hits. You can hear it drop in volume and give it actually a bit more rhythm. So you can go back to the beginning of the video and compare how the beat sounded when we started and how the beat sounds now. I haven't changed the sequence at all. It's the same sequence, but just doing all these little things can really make the difference in your production. I have a few other random tips that I'll just call any other business. Okay, tip number 1, copy. If you hear a beat, hear a song on the radio or on Spotify or wherever, and you like how the drum sound or how the bass sounds, just replicate it. Oftentimes, when you try to replicate it note for note, you will actually discover how to make things bounce in that same way. Also, experiment with different quantize settings. Your normal quantize settings are 1/16. Try to experiment quantizing in the triplets. You'll find this very, very, very often in trap music. How about I show you? They are playing in 1/16. FL records it as 1/4 beat. You move this guy to 1/6, and you see that the grid changes. What was once on beat is no longer quite on beat. So you can take advantage of that and move things around. So I can take this. See, it has completely different feel. Mess with the velocity some. Already we have a bounce. I really hope that all the rubbish I just told you is actually helpful for someone out there. Like I said, a lot of professional producers already know this, but for the 3 or 4 of you out there who are just starting out in music production and in beat making, I hope that some of these tips were helpful to you. Please consider liking my videos and subscribing and leaving comments. It really encourages me more than anything to keep making videos like this. I'll see you guys again. I shall play you the beat just to usher us out of this nightmare and into the next one.